We're holding on the bottom of Mem Aleph from the base. That's 41b. Shlosh Lakufos, yeah. We think Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. That's what we're learning. We should have Beis Hamikdash immediately. We're learning Lilei Nishmas, Zabagol, the Bas Baruch Begamin, and Samasek and Betzion. And the Refuah Shlema for Rab and David Ben Sarah, and he gets a Eliezer Ben Pegitz for whoever else needs a Refuah Shlema. Let's make Baruch and Right. Okay, Shleisha Lakuches Mitzdarfen. This was a topic that some of you brought up. Let's say there's 3 people combined that have owned the property for 3 years. So Reuven sells it to Shimon, Shimon sells it to Levi, Levi sells it to Yehuda. So Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda have been in the property for 3 years, one year each. Reuven comes and says, "What are you doing in the property?" They say, "Well, we bought it from Shimon." Shimon doesn't have his document. So Levi has a document that he bought it from Shimon. Did I do that? No, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. I have to go to Yehuda. Yeah. So Levi, Shimon doesn't have his document that he bought it from Reuven, but Levi has a document that he bought it from Shimon, and Yehuda has a document that he bought it from Levi. Problem is the first document, the Shimon from Reuven. That's the one that's
he's the one who sold the Brooklyn Bridge,
right? So
missing link.
Right, missing link. The Gemara says Shleish Lakuches Mitzdarfen. They can combine. They can all join together and say, we together own the property for 3 years, and you never were Maicha, you never protested, so therefore we have a Chazaka. Amarav, Rav explains that this would only work with Kulam Bishtar. That's only if there was a document that says that Levi bought it from Shimon and Yehuda bought it from Levi. But if there was no document, then Reuven can claim that the fact that you were in the property for 1 year each shows me that you weren't really behaving like a regular owner. So you yourself knew that you didn't belong in the property. I wasn't protesting because I saw that you weren't really serious. I saw that I was busy with other things, but it wasn't my priority that I should make sure that you don't create a chazak in my property, because every year you were switching people who was in there. You would leave and then this guy would go in. Now, if there's a document, then the document would create a call, create a voice, a rumor that there was a sale that took place. But if there's no document, and the fact that one person was there for a year and then he switched for another person, then it looks like each one was not behaving like the owner. So the reason why
they bought it,
they're claiming they bought it.
No, second and third do show that.
Yeah, if there's a document, then that tells me that they bought it, and everyone knows that they bought it, and they're behaving like owners. But if they don't have documents, no have documents.
Oh, I thought that's like
so and they just show up together. So then say that you weren't behaving like owners, and that's why I didn't protest.
Something like that, and most people written how much the hazard to take place. I think we had a case that 2 people own the property, and they live there at different times.
Right.
And if there wasn't a contract written, or that they already lived there for a year and a half each, and alternate all this stuff, the hazard wouldn't take place.
Yeah. Hold on.
Shimon to Levi when he sold it. Is there a star?
There needs to be a star.
Is there a star now?
So then, now the Gemara says that
only
if there is a star. Only if there is a star. Only if there's a star. Comes along Rav, says Kulam b'shtar. That if there wouldn't be a star, then all of this won't work. And
no,
that's the contrast. Yes star versus no star.
Is it no star for the one and 2 stars for the other?
So from Reuven to Shimon, there's no document. That's clear. From Shimon to Levi to Yehuda, if there are documents for them, then we consider all three of them to have a chazaka. If there's no document for them, then we don't consider a chazaka. Okay. That's the contrast. Now, the explanation for why the document makes a difference is because the documents would announce to the original owner, it would be an announcement to the world, and the original owner is part of that world, that he should have heard that there was a sale, and he should know that they're behaving like owners. They're selling it from one to another, and that's why they're living it. Without a document, then he doesn't know that they sold it, and he thinks that they're not living there like regular owners, and therefore he wasn't like. Now Hillel is bringing up a question that we had a Gemara before that says that if someone makes a chazaka, two people made a chazaka, and they alternated their years, this one. We said, and then someone else came in, tried to take it from them. And I forget who it was, the Amira, that said, why did you alternate? That was because you tried not to create a chazaka. So if you're trying not to create a chazaka, then you won't get a chazaka now either. So you're asking, so how could you have a chazaka with alternate? If you can't have a chazaka with alternating years, so how do you have a chazaka when you're switching one to another? And I think the answer is that, and I saw someone was talking about it in a post in Taisvis or something, that over here there's a document. Okay.
So both the document is okay. Here we have two.
What do you mean we have two things here? One for that. No, 1 second. That's going to be a contradiction. That's not a. What are you saying?
No,
it was a contrast. Without a document, it doesn't work. With the document, it does work, right? Remember where that Gemara was? 30. Yeah.
Someone show ownership for a home, like a renovation.
Well, you live in it would be showing ownership.
Use some trash.
Yeah. You know what? Maybe it was back in the. Okay. So the Gemara now asks, L'meimer de Rav. This halacha from Rav, that the document that they have is going to create such a difference in halacha. It must be because that Savar Rav shtar is like kala. That if there's a document, then there's a rumor that goes along with that. It says that everyone finds out that there was a sale that took place. However, Eidim less like kala. But if there would just be witnesses with no document, then the owner actually doesn't know that a sale took place. He just thinks that they're acting strange and they're moving out every year, and because maybe they don't want to get caught by the original owner, by the real owner.
But does the star need Adim?
Yeah, the star has Eidim, but Eidim without the star would not do that. The problem is Vamar Rav, that Rav says, if someone sold the property and he accepted on himself responsibility that if anyone should come and take away the property from you, he accepted the title insurance. If anyone takes the property from you, I'm going to pay you back. Sure enough, someone comes and takes the property. He goes back to the original seller and he wants his money because he lost the property. Someone confiscated the property that he had purchased. And now what is he allowed to take his money from? He's allowed to take his money from the original seller's sold property, other property that he sold, if he came first, if his sale came before those sales. In other words, when he bought that property, there were other properties that, let's say, Shimon buys property from Reuven, right? and Reuben says that the property that you're purchasing, if there's ever any problems, anyone claims that it's theirs, you can come back to me and I'll give you the value. I'll give you the take responsibility. No, it's just warranty, title insurance. So sure enough, someone takes the property away. He comes back to Reuben and he says, I need my money back. So Reuben says, I don't have any money. So he says, well, what happened to all those properties that you had? Well, I sold it to other people. So he can go to those other people and take it. Now, the problem is that you can't, the reason why you're allowed to take property that's already been sold is because people know the situation. Now, let's say when someone buys a property, he's supposed to look into the fact if the person has other debts to see if there's any mortgages on the property. If there's mortgages on the property, then you have to be careful from buying it. Now, how would he be able to look into it? Only if there's a call, only if there's people know about it. If anything that was done in private, you won't be able to know about it. So that's for that reason. So it goes hand in hand. The reason why a loan is able to be collected from property is because people know about that loan. That would only be a loan with a document. If a loan with a milva b'shtar, you can go back and collect from property that's been sold, because when the person bought the property, he knows that there's a loan, and he bought it knowing that the guy may come back. There's maybe a mortgage on this property. Now here we're not dealing with a loan. Here we're dealing with a sale of a property with title insurance. And the guy comes back, wants to take it. Now, 1 second. How was this property sold with title insurance? This property, it was sold without a document. It was only sold with witnesses. There was no document here. One of the ways of acquiring a property is with a document. This was without a document. This is sold with just witnesses. And the Rav says that if someone says it sells this field with witnesses, he can go back and collect even from sold property. He can go back to the original seller and collect. The problem is that the only way I would ever say that is if the sellers, if the other purchasers would be able to know about that sale.
Right. That you say that they,
Which means that Adam create a call. That is a concern. That is a concern. That's not a concern right now. So, in other words, the responsibility on the purchaser to make sure when you buy a property that there's no mortgages on it, you can only put that responsibility on him if those mortgages would have a rumor that goes along with them. But if there would be no rumor that goes along with those mortgages, and you can't say, then it cancels that responsibility on all these other purchasers.
because otherwise he should. And how would he, put them in ad, and you would have a restriction. It's the mikvah.
Whenever there's a document, that means there's witnesses. That means those witnesses walk out and they say, "Oh, what happened?" They say, "Oh, we just signed on a sale." Just that, So that the question is do all witnesses create this, or is just witnesses in the document? It appeared from the first halacha that three purchasers can create a chazaka only when there's a document. That's what Rav said. It means that the rumors that go out is only when there's a document. Then we have another case where it appears that there's rumors even when there's just witnesses without a document. So that's our question. The Gemara answers like this: that you have to take a look. There's a difference that's going on over here. There's finding out information that you know that you should be looking for, versus finding out information that you don't even know that you should be looking for. So when someone purchases a property, even though there may not be, everyone knows and all of this, but you have to do research. You have to make the calls, you have to do your homework, you have to go ask the people that would know. Does this person have mortgages? Did he make any loans? Did he sell properties? Did he sell properties with responsibility? right? With the guarantees, with the title insurance. Did he do that? So the lakuchas, those other people that purchased properties, it was their responsibility to find out if this happened. So therefore, if they didn't do that, they end up losing out. And when this person bought his property with a guarantee, then when it gets taken away, you can go back and take from those purchasers that purchased the property. One of the obligations of the purchaser that you should look into that. On the other hand, here we have a guy that owns a property. Someone moves in, and he's not behaving like an owner. He moved out a little while later, and then no one knows why he moved out. He doesn't need to look into, was there a sale, was there not a sale. The world's not saying. He could just say that, look, you weren't behaving like a regular person. That's why I didn't protest. So you can't put the responsibility on him to protest because he should have found out that he's not a purchaser, he's the owner. Right? He doesn't even know who to ask. Was that a sale or was that? I could ask those people, but we don't put the responsibility on him because he wasn't selling it. He's the owner.
And you just let squatters.
Yeah. So what we're saying over here is that even though there's no coil when there's no witnesses, when there's no shtar, there's no coil when there's no shtar, but nevertheless there's a responsibility to investigate when it comes to purchasing. He doesn't have a responsibility to investigate when he's the owner. The Gemara says, does Rav really say that if you sell a property with a guarantee, with only witnesses, that you can go back and confiscate other properties because the purchaser should have investigated? The problem is, but we have a Mishnah that says, Malves Chaver Bishtar, give Menachas Mishabadim, Ayadei Edim, give Menachas Menei Chayrin. Someone lends money to his friend with a document. When it comes to collect, the creditor can collect money from the borrower from his property, and he can even collect from property that was sold. When would he be allowed to do that? Only if it was done with a document. If the loan was done with a document, if it was just done with witnesses, then it doesn't work. Now the problem is like this: you can only collect from property that the borrower owns right now, not that he sold. You can't go to those purchasers and confiscate the property, saying you bought a property that I had a lien on, that I was supposed to be, that property was supposed to go to me. You can't do that because there was no document on the loan. Now, 1 second. If we say that purchasers are supposed to look into things even without a document, so why didn't they look into this? Without the document, a loan without a document, you can't collect from sold property. So, and we said before that a purchase without a document, you can collect from sold property that was confiscated, that was taken away because it belonged to someone else. You can go back and collect from sold property, even though there's no witnesses. So, v'chitema Rav Tano Palig, maybe we could say that what we just quoted here was not Rav. This was a Mishnah. The difference between a loan that's done with a document or a loan that's done with witnesses, that's a Mishnah. But Rav was the one that was talking about a sale, that it doesn't matter if the sale was done with a document or just with witnesses. That was Rav's opinion. And Rav is a Tana, and he can argue with the Mishnah. Now, Rav is one generation after the Tanoim. He's a student of Rebbe. So the Gemara sometimes will mention that Rav, because he was like that border generation, it's in between Tanoim and Amoraim, that Rav has the ability to argue on Mishnayos. Wow. So when we get really stuck with a contradiction between Rav and the Mishnah, we can say, well, Rav Tano Palik. Rav was that ability that he's able to do that. So maybe we'll say Rav Tano Palik. The problem is you can't do that either. But Rav Shmuel Damri Tavaya Milval Pena gave a limina Yosh Velamin Olakuchas. Rav and Shmuel both said, which that means Rav said, that if there's a loan that's done without a document, you cannot collect from the inheritors or from purchasers. Which means that Rav clearly holds that without a document, even though there was witnesses, but there's no call. So the Gemara answers this problem by saying, Milva is vini karamis. You're asking a contradiction between a sale, where Rav said that there's the witnesses are the same thing like a document, versus a loan. Milva, when it comes to the loan, kika yazif, betzina yazif, keichid leilitzlu nechsela, zvini mandazav and ara befarhesizav and keichid lekala. There's a huge difference between a loan and a sale. When it comes to a loan, no one wants anyone else to know that he's borrowing money. You don't do that in public. But the reason the Gemara explains why you don't do that in public is that let's say you were trying to sell property. Sorry?
They don't ask you.
What was the story? This guy went to his Rebbe. He said, the people are bothering me. I don't get what the problem is. If they're wealthy people, so ask them for a loan. And they'll just go away. And if they're not wealthy people, so give them a loan. So when it comes to the loan, the problem is if people find out that you need money quickly and you're borrowing money, so then when you're trying to sell something, people won't pay the high price that you're asking. They'll just delay it until you become desperate, and then you'll lower your price. See, when you're selling something, you have to look like you're not desperate. To look like, oh, you put your house on the market, you sell it for. It's not what's they call the fast sales. What is that called? Like a short sale where they have to sell it quickly or something. You don't want anyone to know that. Then you can't get the high price. So if people know that you're borrowing money, so then they're gonna get you to lower the price. That's another point. But here we're saying that because you need the money quicker, your timing is important. So they'll be able to bargain with you differently on things that you're selling. So no one wants people to know that they're borrowing money. When it comes to a sale, on the other hand, it's different. So basically what we're saying now is that when it comes to a sale, the new purchasers are able to find out if a previous sale took place and if there was a guarantee on that property sale. And that's why we put the responsibility on the other purchasers that you should have asked when you purchased this property if there are liens on the property, and you should have found out if there were other sales with guarantees which creates a lien on your property. And that you could have found out, because when it comes to a sale, people make it known that they bought a property. When it comes to borrowing money, it's very difficult for you to find out if there was no document, if this person had borrowed money and with just witnesses without a document. We don't put the responsibility on. That would explain that difference in halacha, and Rav could agree with the Mishnah. Yeah. Okay.
See public record how much this person paid for the house. You see if the house is sitting empty, so they're losing money.
How do they see if the house is empty? You have to drive by.
No, when you go and you see the house, you see
because they have pictures without furniture or something.
But that's when you see it. The pictures they put the furniture on. When you see, this house is $3,000 a month, and the owner is losing $3,000 a month because it's empty. It could be more good to negotiate.
Wow.
He's losing money every month.
Yeah. Let's get into the business. Problem is not the right time. Nothing moving. I think. Okay, Taner Rabbanan. Taner Rabbanan. My neighbor just sold this house. Yeah. So that, he got it. How much? No. Oh yeah, $1.2 million, I think. My neighbor on the block. He moved one block over. Amazing, huh? Taner Rabbanan. He built a brand new house, so he was waiting it took him a few years. This is like continuation of the case that we had before, is that let's say there were 3 owners to the property over 3 years. Can they join together to be create a chazaka? Said if there was a document, yes, right? That's what we learned before. Now, if the father was in the property, he purchased the property and he was there for 1 year. And the son, his father passed away. The son was there for 2 years. So that combination of father-son could become a chazaka. Or it's the opposite. Let's say the father was there for 2 years and the son was there for 1 year. What happens if there was a father for 1 year, he passed away, the son inherited the property, the son doesn't want the property, so he sold it for a year later. He sold it a year later to a purchaser. Now, if there was now a purchaser, so now from father to son, it makes perfect sense, and you should consider that the same owner. Not like you're not living in it the way owners live in it. Of course he is. It went from it's a father to son. That's a regular inheritance. And now if there's a sale, obviously together with a document, and that would be continue the chazaka. So that would work. Erase the chazaka. L'meimra de lekeches lekala. 1 second. Why is there a chazaka there? Because the owner knows that this was sold. It's not like just strangers that are moving in. He knows that it was sold. He considers it one purchase, one owner there, and he should have been meicha. That's why it creates a chazaka. But obviously that would only work if people know about the sale. So there must be that people know about it. Well, the problem is we're a mini, but we have a contradiction to this. Exactly the opposite case. This is the direct opposite. The direct opposite would be achla b'fneiha avshana. Let's say the father was not the new owner. The father was the original owner, and there's someone else that went into the property, and he's there for 1 year while the father's alive. Il b'fneiha ben shtayim, and he's there by the son for 2 years, and he's there while the son is the owner for 2 years. Father passed away, so he was basically in the property for 3 years. There was a father and a son. Or he's b'fnei avshtayim b'fnei ben shana. He was by the father for 2 years. It was by the son when the son owned it for 1 year. Or b'fnei avshana b'fnei ben shana b'fnei lekech shana. And he was there by the purchaser for 1 year. Father 1 year, son 1 year. We're talking about Yehuda is the guy in the property, and there was Reuben's the father, Shimon is the son, and Levi's the purchaser. And Yehuda claims that he was the one that owned it before all of this, right? He's the original owner. No. These three are the owners. The father's the original. And this Yehuda is in the property. He's the squatter. Now what we say is that that's considered a chazaka, raise a chazaka. Yehuda has a chazaka. Now the problem is, if we say that a purchase creates a rumor of what's going on, why are you telling me that the lekech should have protested? That Yehuda, what are you doing in the property? 1 second. When Shimon sold it to Levi, Shimon's the son, when he sold it to Levi, to the purchaser, so that's the biggest protest that you can ever make. How do you sell a property if someone else owns it? If a sale creates a rumor, so then that should also be considered a protest. Then it had to have a protest. Gemara explains that over there, Rav Papa is explaining that when he sold his property, he didn't actually say, I'm selling that such and such a property. He said, I'm selling all my property. Now, that maybe included this property, maybe it didn't. But that didn't affect Levi from holding on to the documents because, well, Levi has to have his document. But that doesn't affect, that doesn't affect Yehuda from holding on to his document. because when Shimon sold the properties to Levi, he didn't just sell this property; he sold all the properties. Yehuda was understanding that this property wasn't included in that because this property has been his. So B'meicher Sadais of Stam, he just sold all his fields, but not specifically this field. If it would have been specifically this field, so you should have gotten all nervous. I don't understand why are they selling my field. I own the field. Two other people are there's one buying, one selling my field. That would be a macha.
So is the son saying why my father sold the field?
No, the son inherited the field, the father, then the son sells it to Levi. Now there's a guy that's in the field in the property the whole time saying, "Oh, I wasn't watching my document. No one told me anything." So we're saying, but 1 second, when you saw the sale taking place, don't you think you should have?
Yeah.
When your own field that you think you own was just sold, don't you think you should guard your document? So we're saying that no, it wasn't his field that was sold. It was Shimon's fields that were sold to Levi, but Yehuda thought that this field wasn't one of Shimon's fields because it didn't say specifically this field. It was just a general.
I was thinking what would happen if the original owner sold it to someone else. The son thought he inherited. So who has the burden?
That is actually a Gemara.
What if there wasn't?
Did we have a Gemara like that before where someone says that I bought it from your father and the son says, what are you talking about? I inherited it from my father. I think that was a Gemara before.
Well, just yesterday, the Gemara was, if a son says, I got it from my father, he's believed without further proof, because that's a normal event.
As long as the father was there, right?
No, if he says, I inherited it from my father.
Even if the father wasn't there for a day?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Wasn't that yesterday?
Yeah, could be. So 7 years ago in a day.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Just to make sure I understand this. Today we, it seems that in this time, it was just understood that people talked.
Right.
Today, we admire people who are discreet. But it seems it was just understood that people talk and know about others' affairs. If he has a debt, if he owns it, if he sold it, that's right. We count on people gossiping.
That it's small towns. In small towns, you don't have any news about what's going on somewhere else, but you have all the news that's in your town.
Mm-hmm.
That's what switched between today and back then. Today we know everything about everywhere else. We don't know what's going on around the block.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't stepped outside.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Sorry?
Anyone who does know all that, it's considered nosy.
It does
Stay away
not.
from it.
Okay. The next Mishnah says, "Umnin va'shutvim va'arisin va'patrapin elem chazaka." This is not talking about a chazaka of a 3-year chazaka specifically. This could be talking about a chazaka. Do we consider, look, if I'm holding on to this thing, so say, hey, that's mine. That's one of you say, hey, that's mine. So no, it's not. It's mine. I'm the one that's holding it. So it's assumed that it's mine, and you're gonna have to prove that it's not. So that would only apply if it's something that is not, let's say, things that are lent out regularly, like a pencil. It's lent out. The fact that I'm holding it and you say that's my pencil, that's not going to. I don't have more rights over it just because I'm holding it, because it's something that is always lent out, right? The same thing would be goydrus, these little sheep that walk around that's in my property. They just wander around. It doesn't mean that it's mine just because it's in my property. They wander. So the same thing would apply to a craftsman that has something in his shop. Why is it in the shop? He says, well, it's mine. So how do you know that it's not necessarily yours? I gave it to you to fix. The same thing would be shutfin. What are you doing in this property? Or why are you eating the fruit? He said, well, I'm a partner. or whatever else. But Arisin would be someone that's a worker. He's a sharecropper. He eats the fruits of the property, a certain amount of the fruits, a third or a quarter or a half, and he gives the owner, whatever other amount. We had a discussion. It was he takes more, or the owner takes more. Aputrapin is someone that's in the property because he's taking care of the property. So we don't say that it's his because he was just taking care of the property. They don't have a chazaka. A man can't say that he owns his wife's property because he's been using it or because he's holding on to it. The wife can still say if they get divorced and she wants to say, take her property back with her, it was that type of property that she ends up taking back. So then she can say, no, it's not yours. It says, so why was I always driving that car? Well, because you used my car. It's not a proof. And the same thing would apply if a woman has something that her husband has and the husband wants it back. So it's not a proof just because she uses it. Same thing would apply to a father using something of the son's or the son using something of the father's. It doesn't prove that it's his. When do we say that this is not, all of these are not considered chazaka? That's b'machzik. Talking about that we're trying to show ownership just by you, but just the fact that you're holding on to it, that you're using it. However, aval b'naisin matana. The idea over here is not naisin matana. The idea over here is that if the way that you were, the acquisition of it, the way that you acquire, there's a difference between a chazaka that's assumed ownership and a chazaka that creates the kinyan. When it comes to creating the kinyan, then sure, if a father sells it to the son can go make a chazaka by putting up a fence.
So like the nice matana would have to be with 8, not just.
Yeah.
Otherwise, between you and me, no one knows what's going on unless you do.
Yeah, that would be the way to do it. We'd have to tell him in front of witnesses, go and make a chazaka, and with that chazaka you'll acquire it. Could be closing the door, locking it up, putting it, changing the lock. That's what usually a new owner gets the key, he changes the lock. That would be, yeah. Bach and Shachalka, the same thing would apply, that brothers that are dividing something up, we're going to say that it's a chazaka of a kinyan. But the same thing is acquiring from Hefker, acquiring from a convert that passed away without children. Null Gada parts Kalshu, if he locks the door, puts up a fence, or he breaks through a wall. So then, Arizu Chazaka, that would be a Chazaka. Avua the Shmuel, the Levi Tanu. Avua the Shmuel's father, and Levi, a student of Rebbe, they taught Shutef Ein Le Chazaka of Kolskenuman. Now, this is an interesting point. In the Mishnah, it started off with Uman, Bashutfim, and it continues on, Arisan. It says they don't have a chazaka. An Uman, the craftsman, and a partner. So now the craftsman doesn't have any ownership. The partner has a partial ownership. So if the partner doesn't have a chazaka, even though he owns part of it, so his hands are stretched into a little bit. So V'kolshkin Uman. The Mishnah doesn't even need to say Uman. And in Levi and Shmuel's Mishnah, it didn't say Uman, the craftsman. He doesn't own anything anyway. He has no ownership in it at all. And it's just by him because he was working on it. So he doesn't have any chazaka. Shmuel, on the other hand, learned the opposite. He says, Uman ein le chazaka. It says, what it taught in the Mishnah was the Uman doesn't have a chazaka. Abel shutaf, but when it comes to a partner, yesh le chazaka. A partner can create a chazaka by showing ownership of the entire property or whatever. He can show a chazaka. What's the Shmuel Temei? And Shmuel follows his reasoning. A partner can create a chazaka by using the whole property, and he's so considered a separate person than the other partner that he's even able to testify about the other person. He can testify that it belongs half to the other person. He's not considered like biased because of that. And also, he's considered a shemer sachar for the other person's property, and the other person considers shemer sachar in his property. In other words, they're separate individuals. That's what Shmuel holds. Being that they're separate individuals, they can create a chazaka by using the other person's property. Ramile Rab Abba Rav Yehuda b'ma'arta debei Rav Zakai. Rab Abba asks a contradiction to Rav Yehuda in the cave of the house of Rav Zakai. What's that aleph? Some say it's ma'atzarta. If it's b'ma'arta, it looks like they were hiding. The ma'atzarta just means it was an olive press. But
Big difference.
oh, they translate burial crypt.
Well,
I wonder what they say.
usually they
Do they say a
say
Martha burial crypt? Or it's an olive press, but I don't know if Martha needs to be a burial. Maybe it is.
But they were hiding in the graveyard.
In the cave. In the cave. Okay. Maybe. No. So then it wouldn't be a burial crypt, then it would be they're hiding. Okay. Miyam Shmuel, he says like this: the Shmuel says Shutiv yesh chazaka, that a partner can create a chazaka. Shmuel, but Shmuel says Shutiv ki yared b'shustami. A partner is like he's a sharecropper. It's like he goes down with permission. So it doesn't mean that he's the owner. How does he create a chazaka if he has permission to be there? He's not a. So it says lav lemeimra the shutiv ein lechazaka. Shouldn't that mean that a shutiv doesn't get a chazaka? The fact that he's there does not show ownership, because he's allowed to be in there because he does work. Well, like kasha, there's no contradiction. Depends. Is he using the whole property or is he using half the property? Now, now this could go two ways. Now, what this means is, some say that he doesn't have a chazaka, or he does have a chazaka if he's using the whole property. Because the normal way would be to only use half the property. Some would say that, and some say it the opposite. Some say that the normal way is to use it the whole property 1 year, and then the next person uses the whole property the other year. So he's creating chazaka because he only is using half the property, showing that half of the property is already divided. So whenever you do it the opposite, there's different ways for partners to deal with things. They could either deal with, you take it 1 year, you take it 3 years possibly, and I'll take it 3 years. But they can say, you take half and I'll take half. Whatever the case is, when you do it the opposite way from the normal, then you could create a chazaka. Okay. Ravina says no. It could say that you're actually going into the entire property. So how do we have the two statements of Shmuel? Does he create a chazaka? Does he not create a chazaka? The answer is the property large enough to split? If the property was large enough to split, so what are you doing in the whole property? If the property was not large enough to split, so then of course you're in the whole property. They can't split it anyway. That's the way you use it. It's like a timeshare, right? You don't divide that in half. You're both staying in the same thing. When this one uses it, this one doesn't use it. Gufa. Okay. Let's return to something that was mentioned before. That's Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, Shutif kiyard b'shustami. A partner, it's as if he is an aris. He goes down with permission. It's as if he's a sharecropper, and he shouldn't have a chazaka. Mike Kamashmal, what are you trying to tell me? Shutif ein le chazaka, that he doesn't have a chazaka. Lema shutif ein le chazaka. Why doesn't he just say that? Why is he using this expression? Kiyard b'shustami. It's as if he's going with permission. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Baravua. Rav Nachman says the name of Rav Baravua. That means is that normally if someone does work in someone else's property and he does that work, if the artist does the wrong type of work in the property, he plants in a property that's meant for grain. He puts grain in a property that's meant for an orchard. He does it. So he always gets paid the lower amount. But if he's a partner, then he has permission to do whatever he wants, and he can actually get the full price for whatever work that he does. Okay, let's leave it over here.